Here is a strange number, 170,000. That is roughly how long ago scientists believe humans started wearing clothes. Not stone tools, not fire, not language, clothes. And here is the part that does not add up. Humans lost their body hair around 1 million years ago, which means for roughly 800 years, hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors walked around Africa, completely naked and completely hairless, and somehow survived just fine. So why, after 800 years of managing without them, did we suddenly need clothes? The answer to that question did not come from a cave, or a fossil, or a scrap of ancient fabric. It came from lice. A body louse can only survive in one place: fabric. It cannot live on bare skin the way a head louse can, which means body lice could not have existed until clothing existed. Researcher David Reed and his team at the University of Florida realized this was a clock. By sequencing the DNA of modern body lice and comparing it to head lice, they could calculate exactly when the two species split apart genetically, in other words, the moment clothing entered the picture. Their answer: around 170 years ago, old fabric would never have survived that long buried in the ground. But lice DNA does not need fabric to survive. It just needs descendants, and it had plenty. There is other physical evidence, too. Stone tools that look suited for scraping animal hides go back as far as 780 years ago at sites in Spain. Marks on ancient bear bones found in Germany suggest early hominins were wearing bearskins around 300 years ago, long before modern humans as a species even existed. So clothing was not a single invention. It was a slow, repeated experiment, tried out by more than one species of ancient human, over an enormous stretch of time. Here is where it gets genuinely strange. If clothing was mainly about surviving the cold, you would expect it to show up right around the time humans started moving into colder climates. It does not. According to Reed's research, humans started wearing clothes about 70 years before they migrated into colder, higher latitude regions. That migration did not begin until roughly 100 years ago, which means for 70 years, humans in warm parts of Africa were already wearing clothes, before there was any climate reason to need them. That timing lines up with something else, though. The last ice age is estimated to have begun somewhere between 130 and 180 years ago. So, even inside Africa, conditions were not uniformly warm. Cooler, drier stretches driven by that ice age may have been enough to push early clothing use, well before anyone packed up and left the continent. But archaeologist Ian Gilligan, who was not part of the lice study, pointed out that this date is earlier than almost anyone expected, earlier than the solid archaeological record can confirm on its own, which raises a real possibility that clothing was not only about survival. It may have started as something closer to tinkering, wrapping, draping, experimenting with hides, long before it was strictly necessary, and only later becoming essential once the climate demanded it. And this is the part most people get backwards. We tend to assume clothing was invented out of necessity, cold weather forced our hand, so we solved the problem. But the evidence suggests something closer to the opposite. The tinkering came first, the necessity came later, and simply made the tinkering permanent. It is a pattern that shows up again and again in human history, technology getting explored casually, for reasons that are not fully practical yet, long before a crisis makes it indispensable. Clothing may be one of the oldest examples of that pattern we have any evidence for at all, and there is a deeper twist buried in the biology. Once clothing became permanent, it may have changed us physically. Some researchers suggest that with bodies covered more often, our skin faced less direct sun exposure in certain populations. One of several proposed factors, alongside migration to higher latitudes, in the evolution of lighter skin tones over tens of thousands of years. A piece of technology adopted for reasons that started out almost experimental may have quietly reshaped human biology itself. So the next time you put on a jacket without thinking twice, you are repeating something our ancestors were already doing 117 years ago, long before it was a matter of life or death. Clothing did not start as an emergency solution. It started as an idea humans tried out, refined slowly, carried across ice ages and continents, until it became something we can no longer imagine living without. We did not just adapt to the world with clothing. In a small, Strange way, clothing helped decide who we would become.